It did feel like the Democratic Party under Joe Biden did a lot of things for working class voters. Certainly inflation was a giant issue. Messaging as well. Do you feel like they just failed to message what they had done for and had planned for the economy?
It is tough love time for the Democratic Party. I think it needs to be stripped down and rebuilt. I think that means a change in leadership. I want to know who thought it was a good idea that Joe Biden stand for another 4 years at 80 years of age and 37% popularity. So then that saddled the party with a British-like short campaign season for them. I think it's insulting when members of the working class, which the Democratic Party has lost entirely in our lifetimes, to insist the economy is doing great. A 12-pack of Bounty is $40. Rich folks don't feel that. Poor folks already switched to Sparkle during the COVID.
Is that how much it costs? $40 for a Bounty? That means some of y'all got to work for 2 hours just to go get some Bounty. That's crazy. I did not know that. Good God. I mean, when you put it like that, it really does resonate because one thing that people keep saying, and they keep, and that's why when I listen to people like Charlemagne explain how the economy is doing good and all of this stuff, bro, you are so far removed. You are so off the reservation of what real people are going through on a daily basis and how they have to pick and choose. Okay, well, am I gonna feed myself? Or you know what? Ain't no going out, packing lunch, and the lunch that I gotta pack is ramen noodles. See, I don't know nothing about that life. Y'all don't know nothing about, it being so tough to where you go and get that chicken, you go get that beef pack, and I think they had a shrimp pack. The shrimp pack might have been purple or pink. That might have been the seafood pack. But then they also had the beef pack that was red, and then they had the chicken pack that was orange. And then I think it might have been a different, slightly different slice, spicy chicken one. Anyways, the point is that all of that money that was flowing and all of the getting to the bag and the low cost of living and being able to go to the gas station, when people have to make a sacrifice and say, hey, listen, it ain't even no point in me owning two cars because I can't even afford the insurance for it. That becomes a problem. And the Democrats obviously lost touch of that because maybe they was looking at employment numbers, but they wasn't looking at underemployment numbers. And maybe they also wasn't looking at people that had to have two jobs and people that stopped looking and all of that. And so to see what people were dealing with on the streets, and the reality was that I did a lot of street interviews and people was hurting in real life. They was pretending for the gram, but they was hurting in real life.
During the lockdown. And I think telling them that the NASDAQ is gangbusters is further insulting. It's insulting. I think the biggest unforced error of the Biden administration by far was the border. To tell people it's not a problem is insulting. For the working class to see incoming migrants getting welcome bags, debit cards, and motel rooms is probably insulting.
Hotel rooms. Let's not say motel rooms, hotel rooms in Times Square in Manhattan.
As well. So there's a lot of work to do. It was when they handed out camo hats that said Harris Walls, and the Democrats they were kind of charmed by that. Their party has gone quinoa, and the rest of America's eating at Cracker Barrel. And so it was kind of an ironic use of something millions of Americans put on their heads to start their day every day.
No, at the same time, and I take your point, obviously you have Donald Trump, doing a half a shift at a McDonald's and wearing a trash reflector vest and pretending, basically play acting as a garbage man.
As one does.
Yes, as one does. So it does feel like, right, it's almost like the Democrats have to figure out a different way to message, while the Republican Party has this way that nobody would have ever thought would be effective that Donald Trump is doing.
Yeah, they need to reach out to America again and be less about what's called suicidal empathy, worrying so much about minority groups in society and in your party that you win the argument, but you don't win the election.
You lose the war. And it's a couple things to take from that. I think one thing that he also needs to add in that is that They thought, well, the fact of the matter is that the Democratic Party is just so corrupt that they can't stand on anything because everything that they're doing is based off of your emotions. So, that's one of the reasons why they played so hard into the black vote, and they won. They won the black vote, but they lost the war because they lost sight of what everybody was going through, including black people, which was the fact that they could not afford groceries. They are dealing with layoffs. People are struggling. You're not getting with somebody nowadays because and this is the reason why the 50-50 conversation is so important. You're not getting with somebody because you love them now. You overlooking love because you looking at the fact that you ain't about to be out here dusty. And so people got to come together in order to even survive. Homelessness, repossessions were up. Cars are sitting on dealership lots. People can't even afford to breathe. They happy to get a hand-me-down car that don't have a car note. That's like a relief, a sigh of relief. That's a sigh of relief to people now. But here's the worst part. They then chose to speak more about reproductive rights and emotional conversations that had nothing to do with your cost of living or your way of life. And yet you still see people talking about their civil liberties being taken away. They tried to, you know what they tried to do? They tried to spend so much time talking about Project 2025 that had no relevance or no tie to the Trump administration, and people wasn't buying it. The reality is that people woke up and realized that being a part of the Democratic plantation was a privilege. It wasn't a right. It was something that made you feel something and feel significant, which is one of the reasons why college students often at times they get involved with this and that. But then when they grow up and they realize that they can't have kids because they can't afford them and they're gonna go into the poorhouse, it's a completely different conversation. What I seen a lot of people that was my age and older was doing in this election was that they weren't even voting just for themselves; they were voting for their children. They were voting for their children's future, which is something that we rarely get an opportunity to do because most of the time we just out here partying and having a good time. But he's absolutely right for the most part.
To them to decide, are they tired of winning the argument but not the election?
Well, certainly they had done well every election since 2016, and so do you think they were wrong to think they were on some sort of winning streak based on the fact that they had outperformed expectations?
Stolen.
Probably. And I think the other lesson we learned this election year is that polling isn't worth a damn. If you
learned
want
that
to
last
see
election.
what polling used to
Last
do,
national election.
follow the betting indexes. They were right.
Yeah.
They were almost all right, but not the pollsters.
But see, I follow, like, when I bet on football, it's never right. Like, they tell me who's going to win, and then I'm just, like, losing money left and right.
Well, some
The fact of the matter is that I was following the streets and I had the pulse of the streets. I was in the streets. I talked to a lot of people and I was seeing the sentiment of what was happening online. And I'm telling you, while MSNBC was running ads on YouTube for people to be able to view their videos, it it was just straight up natural organic traffic that was happening for people that actually rocked with and align with real life issues. When you talk about real life issues, when you listen, if I do a video and it's talking about a repossession, it's out of there. It's out of there immediately. That's a go-to easy. If I want to go on a dealership lot and film myself around a bunch of Ford vehicles or a bunch of Chrysler vehicles and say, hey, this is why it's out of there. You know why? Because it actually is real and it resonates with people and it's something that's actually happening in real life. And so the Democrats, I believe, in a way, they become so detached from reality because they all live in with their head in the sky and they all been funded by taxpayers and they lifetime politicians instead of being real business people. And so even when you see business people say, you know what? This ain't real. We got to get back to the core of what America is, which then drives the innovation and it drives the success. That resonated with people. Y'all let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon link is in the description. Also, get your tickets to come and kick it with me December 14th in Detroit. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace.